And then when you have that feeling of like, wow, I can actually feel a little bit of relief, like I can feel it moving away. In that moment, step 3 is, who do you want to be with money? What kind of relationship do you want to have with money? For me, in the very beginning, it was money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. And I could feel it. And I pulled that towards me every single day. I woke up thinking about it. I spent my day thinking about it. I spent my evening going to bed thinking about it. And then the 4th step is, now go watch for it showing up in your life. I can't tell you how many people I talk to and they say, oh, I want money in my life. I want money. I said, great. Well, can you identify where money is showing up in your life? No, there's no money showing up anywhere. I'm like, you didn't see money anywhere in the course of your day? Oh, well, I saw a dime, but I'm not picking that up. Great. You've just said you want money to flow to you easily, abundantly, but you would not pick up a dime because it's not the kind of money you want. You've just altered that vibrational frequency, or altered that desire to have more money by saying, oh, it needs to be a certain kind of money or in a certain amount of money. Well, if you can't honor the dime, you're never going to honor the dollar. You're never going to honor the 100. We have to honor everything. And when we do that, when we express gratitude, then more of it flows to us.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, yeah, we know Canada. In British Columbia on the West Coast, right. And then there is a big city in British Columbia, Vancouver. Yes, there is. We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers. And it is in the center of British Columbia, north, south, east, and west. Big province. Prince George, relatively small community, city, 80,000, 85,000 people. It is set in paradise, in nature, all around us. Probably within 50 miles, we have 100 lakes. All our friends live here as well. Black bears, grizzly bears, mooses, caribous, wolves, you name it, we have them all. And we love them. And so today we have a very, very interesting guest. And it's all about money and mindset of money. And he is an expert. His name is Pericles Rellas. I hope to say it correctly. And Pericles has well over 25 years experience as a money mindset expert. Pericles Rellas has helped people create healthy relationships with money and themselves, and creating a powerful money mindset so they can live lives of joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Well, that's the dream of virtually everybody. So we'll talk about with Perry about, so what will that all look like, and how do we get there, and even more important, if we're nearly there, how can we stay there? Perry, welcome to the show.
John, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us about yourself, Perry. Is your background, and where are you, and where are you from, and then kind of how did you start your career or your education system, and then ended up in money and money-related issues, and obviously your organization, helping people in particular to develop that money mindset. How did you get there?
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey, but I'll do it in a nutshell. I born and raised in Los Angeles, and my parents were not wealthy at all. They were very, I think, lower middle class, and in tune with a lot of people in the United States, and perhaps in Europe as well, and Canada. We never talked about money. It was never a subject you talked about with anyone. You didn't ask about it. You certainly never asked anybody how much they made or how they got to be successful. And I remember growing up being angry and frustrated as a young man. I think I got that from, my father, who had a bit of a temper. And there was a moment in my life, I think around 1994, where I said to myself, there's got to be something more here. And I started to look inward. I stopped looking outward at the world for the answers, and I started looking inward for the answers. And that's when I began my journey of self-exploration, and I began training with anything I could get my hands on, any organization, any education, any book that was all about self-reflection, self-realization. I started to explore it. And then at that point, I decided I wanted to become a coach and help people grow and expand their business, grow and expand their own success level. And what I noticed early on in that work was while my clients were making more money, which is exactly what we wanted, they still had the same experience at the end of every month. So if they were just behind every month before they started working with me, they were still just behind. If they were just treading water, they were still just treading water. Or if they had anxiety or stress or worry around money, they still had all those things. And it didn't make any sense because I always thought, well, if you make more money, all those problems go away. Well, it turns out they don't. And so I started to study it and really look at, well, what was going on here? And over the next 2.5 years, I discovered two things. One is that we all have what I call a financial thermostat, and it regulates, just like a thermostat, how much money we can earn, how much money we can keep, as well as our emotional states around money, our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And the second were the 4 keys to resetting that financial thermostat. So I started applying this with my clients, and the results were extraordinary. And they started sharing it with their friends and their family, and everybody suddenly wanted to work with me. And it was at that point I realized, wow, I'm on to something here. And from that point forward, it's been about 25 years, it has been an ongoing exploration, an unpeeling of the onion, as it were, of how our relationship with money is actually a mirror of our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. And that's how I got to be with you today.
So the interesting part about it, Perry, is that it is a topic to anybody around the world for all intents and purposes. But I was born in Holland, and I have a background in Holland, and I came to Canada when I was about 23 years old with very little money or nothing, virtually could speak language, didn't know a soul, blah, 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 wanted to build businesses and all of those kind of things. So I've seen it all, and I was born in 1940, so I just turned 84 years young a couple of weeks ago, actually November the 1st. That's probably a number of months ago, actually. So that's, time goes so quick. And so I've always been around money in a way, and our culture in Holland was the same as that you were familiar with, is that's one thing you don't talk about. You really not.
Yes.
How much do you have? How much do you make? Blah 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 blah. We tend to be much freer. I couldn't. I found it amazing. Some of the first things I couldn't barely speak the language. When I came in, I piled lumber on the green chain. Really, and somebody said, "Hey, how much money do you make? How much money do you have?" I said, "Really?" It's highly inappropriate, but they didn't think nothing of it here, more so than I was used to, which surprised me in a way. So the other part, what I like about what you are mentioning, the thermostat, that no matter what happened, people ended up doing the same or being in the same position at the end of the month. Even if they took in more money, they were always short.
Yes.
Or there's a lot of people that have a job, they're always short one pay period. And so anxiety then becomes a big part of it, not only today's reality, but looking forward. And then if you have a family, you have kids, and all the other things, and it creates, I believe, a lot of stress, if not the most, close to the most important element of stress in relationships is about money and those kind of things. And that continues and has a sizable, substantial effect on lives, not only as you are related to it, of the relationship in which you grew up around you, but also in regards to your own mindset once you leave that relationship unless you change it, which obviously you did, and you saw this as the money mindset critically important, and then developed the concept, which is interesting, of the thermostat. Move it,
Mm,
and all of a sudden things change. So
yes.
tell us about that part in particular. What does it do, and how does it change?
Yeah, it's just like if we imagine a thermostat in our room. Right now, it's probably a little cold where you are, and you've got the temperature set at a certain temperature. And if that cold air comes in, the heat goes on and it brings the room right back to that same
Yeah.
temperature. That's exactly what our financial thermostat does. So if we earn more than our financial thermostat setting is set for, we will then start disappearing money. We won't even know we're doing it because it happens in the background. Just like we don't always notice that the thermostat's kicked on. It's just, wow, it's comfortable in here.
Right.
What we want to do then is bring to the front of our thinking, whoa, what's going on here? There's some pattern that's going on in my life. And for anyone who's listening, just look at how your life is right now. That's the easiest way to see what your financial thermostat setting is. Wow, I can make a lot of money, but I can't keep it. I can't make a lot of money, but I can keep it. Or I can make a lot, I can keep a lot, but I'm always stressed and worried about money. That will give you what your financial thermostat setting is. Now, how we reset that financial thermostat is by looking at what are the blocks or negative mindsets that we have around money. You couldn't have done what you did leaving Holland post World War II with the same mindset that you had when you were growing up in a war torn country, right? You couldn't have done that. You had to change your mindset in order to create the wealth that you created, the success that you created, and learning how to live young and die old versus what most people do is just suffer throughout their whole lives and then we go. So in this case, we want to look at, well, what are the negative thoughts, feelings, or emotions that I have around money? One of the most common ones that I find for people is that money is bad. Money is the root of all evil, or I'll never have a lot of money. And so when people are trying to manifest or people are trying to visualize having more money, the minute they go to do that, that negative mindset comes right into play. And so it's kind of like planting a seed in soil that's poisoned. We've got this. No, it's never going to happen for you. Money's the root of all evil. You're too stupid. You're not educated enough. You're an immigrant. It'll never work for you. All of those negative things that we've got in our heads already will then poison what we're trying to put on top of it. We need to clear that out before we can then plant the seeds or create the manifestation that we want. So what we have to do is 4 very simple steps. Number 1, acknowledge it, own it, notice it, acknowledge it. Okay, there it is. I've had this negative mindset for however long it is. And then number 2, let it go. I let that go. I surrender it into the hands of someone higher than me. It's no longer mine. I release it into the care of the universe, the black bears in the forest or the trees, whatever it is for you. And then when you have that feeling of like, wow, I can actually feel a little bit of relief, like I can feel it moving away. In that moment, step 3 is, who do you want to be with money? What kind of relationship do you want to have with money? For me, in the very beginning, it was money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. And I could feel it. And I pulled that towards me every single day. I woke up thinking about it. I spent my day thinking about it. I spent my evening going to bed thinking about it. And then the 4th step is now go watch for it showing up in your life. I can't tell you how many people I talk to and they say, oh, I want money in my life. I want money. I said, great. Well, can you identify where money is showing up in your life? No, there's no money showing up anywhere. I'm like, you didn't see money anywhere in the course of your day? Oh, well, I saw a dime, but I'm not picking that up. Great. You've just said you want money to flow to you easily, abundantly, but you would not pick up a dime because it's not the kind of money you want. You've just altered that vibrational frequency or altered that desire to have more money by saying, oh, it needs to be a certain kind of money or in a certain amount of money. Well, if you can't honor the dime, you're never going to honor the dollar. You're never going to honor the 100. We have to honor everything. And when we do that, when we express gratitude, then more of it flows to us. And so by clearing those blocks, using those 4 steps, we then reset our financial thermostat so we can earn more, we can keep more. and we can have a new relationship with money. And then ultimately we start to see, wow, money's not what I thought it was. My relationship isn't what I thought it was. Now we have a new relationship to ourselves and the world around us. And then it's a whole new ball game or a hockey
So,
game.
yeah. So it's the mindset that is critical. And
Yes,
then it applies to not only money, but in a lot of areas because I'm a can guy, not a can't guy. A lot of
right.
people are can't people because they say, because this, that, and the other thing, I will never get this, that, and the other one. And the reason that you are lucky and that you are happy and that you are contented is because you've been so blessed by luck. And I always say there that the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how it works. And then the other part is that their mindset that has to always be a reason as the other girl does and I don't. There is always a reason for it. And if I can't find one, I'll manufacture one because it
Right.
helps me in my negative
Right.
mindset. And then so basically what you're doing is changing that mindset. And it said it has to be I can.
Yes. And in fact, we take back all of our power when we do that. When you're an I can person, and we let go of, oh well, they're lucky or they're bad and this is, they were born with a silver. Well, you have no power in your life to control anything. But when you give all that up and you say, you know what, it is all me. My life looks the way it looks right now because of me, because of the choices I've made, the actions I've taken, the thoughts that I've focused on, the mindset that I've had. Suddenly I have all the power. I can change it in an instant, telling a new story about myself. I actually can. I am smart enough. I am good enough. I am worthy. I am capable of doing anything I set my mind to. Then the sky's the limit.
So the interesting part about it is I do quite a few presentations that I do, and I did one in the setting about 3, 4, 5 months ago, and somebody came up to me and said that I'm a good speaker and a good presenter, and obviously I've been successful in some of the things, and I seem to be a contented individual. The
Mm,
reason for it is that my foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic. Attitude,
mm.
I avoid the negative, I always have. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic, I work harder than anybody. I still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my
Mm.
bed, and I'm always think I'm late. So then during that presentation, somebody said to me, well, you're probably lucky because you went to university and you got all these degrees, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I didn't actually. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. They said,
Mm.
but to my parents, what do we do with this guy now? Do we send him? They said, send him to a mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not
Mm.
going to do that. We will take him to a factory where he can learn a profession working with his hands. And so, my grandfather was a master carpenter and my dad worked in lumber. So he sent me to a furniture factory at 12 and a half years old. And this was in 1952. And so that's what I did. And I loved it. And then from there on in, so I became very good at what I was doing. And I had an interest in all the things around me. And I always thought, I want to become successful and I want to prove to me, because
Mm.
kids can be very hard on each other, right? That all
Mm.
the kids that I grew up with in grade 7, they went on to college and university, blah, blah, blah. And I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down on. And so when I
Right.
came here to Canada, I'm going to start with nothing, but just the
Hmm.
mindset.
Yep.
I left Holland with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, very little money. Oh, I dropped my cup. So in any event, so we leave that all into the presentation. Actually, we don't do any editing. This afternoon, later on this afternoon, this session will come out, and usually there are no issues that we have to take out, but we'll leave that one in too. So that then being said, so I came off the bus here. I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. Counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47.
Mm.
Couldn't speak the language,
Yep.
didn't know a soul. and I was going to build a lumber mill,
Mm.
and from that point forward, even when I was piling lumber on the green chain, I walked all the way to work initially because I didn't have a car, and did all these things. But at nights when I was thinking about, I was already building my lumber mill and laying out my the name of the company and laying out the layout and start learning more and more about it. And so that's what I was. It was not a question of will I do it. It was just a question of when and how quickly can I get there. So
Right.
obviously I did, but it's all about mindset that I believe has been. And coming back to the presentation where somebody then said, well, you had a very, very good education. You probably went to university and blah, blah. No, I didn't. And then,
Mm.
well, maybe you had a lot of money in the family. I said, no, we didn't. So it was all mindset is believing I
Yes.
can.
And John, I think what you're saying is so relevant because you went to bed every day knowing you were going to build that mill. You didn't go to work every day thinking, oh, I hate my job. This sucks. I want my life to start someday. All that negativity builds more negativity and creates more negativity. Whereas you embraced what you were doing. You knew what you were doing was on the path to what you wanted. And that's the kind of mindset that creates the kind of success that you've experienced. You could have put the same person with a different mindset in the same situation and they would have ended up a pauper on the street somewhere suffering. But you chose a different path. And it's all about what are we thinking when we get up in the morning? What are we thinking when we're working every single day? Even if it's not the thing we want to be doing for the rest of our lives, I'm blessed to have this job and this opportunity to pay my bills, to create money for my life so I can continue to build the life that I want. Because we're living right now. We're not living tomorrow or next week or next month. We're living right now. And how are you going to choose to live your life right now? You get to choose. We get to choose. And that's where we either have power or we don't. And the choice is ours. We get to pull it towards us or we get to push it away.
And
And then
then
the
the
results are
other
ours.
and the other benefit, Perry, that I had in a way, I was born in 1940 at the beginning of the war. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. Our family was affected by it. Still remember as kids, a brother and sister, we were only 5, 6 years old at the time, 7 years old between us. I was the youngest. Every morning we would go with gunny sacks to the railroad yard, pick up anything edible and burnable, and saw far too much that we should not have seen. Got liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945, and I always would know then, from the time I was 5 years old, that I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada, and then obviously I was not successful academically, and then hold on, there's always a question of, okay, where are your diplomas? Well, I didn't have any diplomas. So nobody asked me that question here in Canada. I came with that dream, and that's what I was going to do. But then the other part to me, very, very important, I do a lot of business, including in the United States, a lot of business actually. And every time when I fly around in Canada or in the United States, I look outside and I say, it's paradise. It is paradise. And compared to the rest of the world, all we have to do is look at Eastern Europe, look at the Venezuela, Cuba, Middle East, China, Russia, and I can go just on and on and on about how lucky we are.
Mm.
And then the other comment that I was going to make is that I know a lot of people that have been, if you wish, very successful, that made a lot of money. Money to me is not important. It really isn't, other than to live on and do the things that relatively nothing extraordinary, but just to be comfortable with. I know a lot of people have a lot of money are not very happy. So contrary to what people may think, that if you're a billionaire, then you must be extremely happy. No, the likelihood is the opposite is the truth.
Yes.
And we can talk about that for a whole lot of stuff. But I say, what I like about it is I still go through all the challenges every day with my companies. I have 10 different companies, and we have challenges here, there, and all over the place. and And that gets me up in the morning and deal with the challenges and do all of those things. But it becomes, again, for me, the foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic, but will follow is success. And then,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. And in you're I say this all the time. People think if I just make a certain amount of money, I'll be happy. I'll have security. Money cannot provide any of those things. And I've worked with billionaires who are on the Forbes list, and I've listened to them just suffering day in and day out over everything that's happening in their lives. I was having dinner with one once and I heard them say, "Oh, there's just never enough money." I mean, how can those words fall out of somebody's mouth who's got billions of dollars? And yet there it is.
yeah,
And so it isn't about the money. And it is one of the things people discover as they go on this journey. Like, oh, wow, I need to find happiness from here. I need to find joy. I need to find contentness. I need to find a sense of enough from here. And then suddenly the world becomes a different place to live in. Money isn't the thing I need to become happy. I'm already happy. Well, now what do I want to do with this money? What's the next challenge I want to set myself? It's not about I've got to show them. It's about I'm going to show me. I'm going
exactly.
to show me what I can do because then again we're working with ourselves to create what we want for our lives versus trying to work against someone else. There is no one else out there. There's just us. And are you willing to play that game? Because if you are, oh my gosh, it's so much more fun.
And so for me and my background, and there are some other things that I'm going to show you a book that I wrote, and there's a story behind that one as well. ADHD Unlocked.
Mm,
I'm ADHD. It took me a long time to find out, but I call it my superpower actually. And so with all the challenges along the way, is that the accumulation of all of that is that it took me a long time to get through all the steps of either proving to me that I can do it. My dream was to go to Canada, build a lumber mill, but then to get it done is the reason that I did that is to prove to me that I could do it for
mm,
no other reason, nothing to do
yep.
with money. And then saying it took me longer than it should have in other ways that to reconcile who am I, and that
Mm,
took me a long time, and it included discovering at an older age, actually, that I'm ADHD, and it
mm,
changed my life. I always knew I was different. Hence, grade 3, grade 7, failing 3 times,
right.
all the other things had an effect on that. But then I was well into my 60s until I discovered ADHD, and that part changed my life. And then
Mm,
from that point forward, I became an author and started writing a book. The first one that I wrote is this one, Against All Odds. It's not about
mm,
how successful John is, but going through all the ups and downs.
right.
A lot of people said to me, "Hey, you should write a book." And writing books is not easy, especially not for somebody like me. And so I started, I stopped, I started, I stopped. So it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to
Mm,
think about it, 2 years to write it. From that point
mm,
forward, now I'm working on my fifth book actually, and then I'm already have plans for my sixth book, and and I love it, and with the companies, we are doing well, but there are challenges every single day, as you well know. So, but for me, was the foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic. The other one is that I can,
mm,
and not I can't. And
mhm,
so, and then the other part is staying the course, never give up. And then I've
yep.
been lucky, stay physically fit. So one of the last books that I wrote is a picture of me actually. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, living young,
Wow.
dying old. And the
Mm,
reason that I wrote the book has nothing to do with the number. I'm 84, but it's all about quality of life. And that
mm,
means that you have this precious body that is can be so forgiving, but it will only allow so much abuse. And then when it all comes to the difficult period where things starting to go wrong, is usually in the last decade of your life, where you get hands full of chemicals that fixing one problem probably creating, I'm not a doc, but creating other problems. And so fitness, healthy mindset, body, and all those things in combination with I can has nothing to do with money.
Absolutely. And I love how you keep saying we have challenges, because many people, they'll say, oh, it's a crisis, it's a disaster, everything is a mess. And that creates a different mindset around what you're dealing with. A challenge, I'm up for a challenge. You're obviously up for a challenge. We can look at a challenge and say, wow, I'm up to the task. But a crisis, a catastrophe, all of these just, superflatives that are just creating more drama, creating more stress and anxiety, completely different way of approaching it. And just like when the coffee cup fell, which I love, by the way, it could have been a catastrophe for someone. Oh my God, we've got to edit that out, and just like a disaster. And then the whole rest of the interview, who cares? It's a coffee cup. It fell. It doesn't make any difference. That's what happens in life.
It will
right?
stay in the picture, and it will leave it in. So, but the other thing is, there are crises all around us. Then I say that means opportunities. So, where are the opportunities here? Because there are, and that's the mindset.
Yes, absolutely. We're always looking for, how does this benefit me? How am I going to learn from this? How am I going to become a better person, a better business person, a better man, a better woman, a better husband, a better wife, better partner? That's the way to look at things, because we do have things that are put in front of us. We can either learn from them or we can let them tear us down. And I'm up for learning from anything. I'm either getting wiser or I'm learning.
Yeah.
Either way, if something fails, I'm getting wiser from the failure. If something works, I'm happy that it worked, and I'm going to keep doing more of what works, and I'm going to keep learning from what didn't work, rather than, oh, life is over, which is where, unfortunately, most people go.
Yeah. Now, so what you now do is you are coaching a lot of people in regard to mindset and the theory of thermostat, which describes it well, in my opinion. So most of that you do, and you're based in Los Angeles. So
I'm actually in Las Vegas right now.
On Las Vegas. Are you winning?
I moved from Los Angeles. I'm sorry?
Are you winning?
I stay out of the casinos, so yes, I am actually winning.
I like that. Yeah. I always sit in the plane and everybody won. I said, no, that's not how they build Las Vegas.
Yes. We love to talk about what we've won, but we forget to tell them how much we lost to get that winning. So yes.
Exactly. So you're in Los Angeles. So, normally are you based now in Las Vegas?
I lived my whole life in Los Angeles. I moved to Europe. I lived there for 3.5 years, and then when I came back to the United States, I decided to settle in Las Vegas. Okay, and so that's where I live now.
So why Las Vegas? Other than the obvious, obviously that's not why. But what attracts you, for your purposes, to Las Vegas? Because it probably involves your lifestyle, it involves your businesses that you do. So what attracted you to Las Vegas in particular?
Couple of things. One is my family is here, and I wanted to be, my mom's now 90, and I wanted to be closer to my family, because I knew as she was getting older, that's what I wanted to do. The second thing was, I wanted to live in a state that didn't have state income tax. When I lived in Europe, I was still paying California income tax the whole time that I was there, even though I wasn't living in California. So I wanted to move someplace where financially it was just a smarter move. And then I've been going to Las Vegas my whole life. I don't know what it is about it. People love to gamble, but there's so much more here. There are amazing restaurants. We have a lot of Michelin star restaurants or Michelin star chefs. We have great entertainment, lots of things to do on a cultural level. So for me, it was just the right fit. Right. And I can work remotely. So I don't have a brick and mortar. I work remotely with all of my clients. Just like having this conversation, we're doing it digitally. I can do that. I can work with clients wherever they are all over the world, and I never have to leave my home, which I love.
You see, that's interesting, Perry, that you say that, because we are now interacting virtually. And so you are in Las Vegas, I'm sitting in central British Columbia, and it feels like you're sitting on the couch right next to
Yeah.
me, developing a
Yes.
relationship, because we never met before, and until about a little over 35 minutes ago. And so already we have shared a lot of things. That's the amazing part about what I call the new media, which is podcasting, is that we podcasting around the world, because our conversation, and you are active on podcasting, so am I, and we already know that this will be looked at globally, and a lot of people get ideas from us as to what we are discussing, and we know that we probably have over a couple of million people watching us. And that's the power of podcasting, and I'm not bragging about it on on YouTube. I think we have 750,000 subscribers, and then on the other immensely powerful. And it's
Right.
only now at the beginning, in my opinion, the podcasting is going to go much, much further. Very, very
Yeah.
powerful.
And the thing for me about that is, just like you said, we're creating this relationship, and we've met, 35 minutes ago, however long it is. You and I get to create a conversation that then has the potential to impact somebody's life, even if it's one person who says, "Oh, wow, you know what? I'm going to look at money a different way, or I'm going to look at my mindset a different way." And that sets them on a course to altering how their life evolves and progresses. That's been worth it for me, because
Yes.
I know that's what happened for me. I met one person who changed and altered the direction of my life forever, because she was willing to have a conversation with me that said, "Wow, there's something that I don't see in my life. There's something available in my life that I didn't know was available, and it altered my life." We can now do that in a virtual way and hopefully make the difference that we want to make, inspiring people to do the things that they want to do, giving them tools that they can then implement in their lives or use in their lives to alter the trajectory and make a difference.
So go back, Perry, to the point where you met that lady and she made a few comments to you which went bang.
Yes. I remember it like it was yesterday. And she said to me, "I just did this program. I did this seminar. It was a 3-day seminar. And I loved it. It was amazing. And I think you might enjoy it. I'd like to invite you to come find out about it." And at the time, I was an arrogant jerk. I was just one of those guys. I thought I knew everything. I had it all handled. And I just dumped on it. I was just, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I tried to argue with her, and I tried to tear it apart, and I tried to tear it down. And I remember how it had no impact on her. Like, she didn't get, oh, and try to defend it. She didn't get upset. She didn't fight back. She just heard me, and she got what I said. And she said, "I totally appreciate that. If you change your mind, I'd love for you to find out about it. Let me know." And I went home that night, and I really thought about how she responded or didn't react to my kind of nastiness about the whole thing. And I went back to her the next day, and I said, "You know what? Tell me a little bit about this. Tell me a little bit about what happened." And she started to explain it. And I said, "Okay, I'll go to this thing." And I went to this introduction, and it was all about what people got and what was available. And I remember sitting in this room with an attitude, because I'm like, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And I remember the person who was speaking said, "Okay, everybody close your eyes. I'm going to draw something on the board." And so we all closed our eyes. We opened our eyes, and he wrote on the board, uh, "Paris in the spring." And he said, "Okay, so I want somebody to just tell me what's written on the board." And I thought to myself, "This says Paris in the spring. This is stupid." And this person raised their hand. He said, "Yeah, Paris in the spring." And the guy said, "Are you sure that's all it says?" And he said, well, Paris in the spring, there's a box around it and there are 2 X's on the side. He said, great. Is there anything else? And he said, no. And I kept getting annoyed and annoyed and annoyed, more and more annoyed that he kept asking the same thing. Then finally he called the guy up and I said, I want you to read each word while touching it. So he touched Paris in the spring. And I didn't see the second the. And in that instant, I knew there was a whole world that was right in front of me that I couldn't see because I had blinders on. And that was the first step on my journey to looking at, and to this very day, I'm clear. There are things I don't see, and I'm always open to seeing the thing that I can't see, which will take me into the next conversation, to the next level.
I believe the lady that you had the conversation with knew that you were going to call her the following day.
Mm.
I'm convinced.
You are probably right. Yeah, I absolutely.
And then with Paris and the spring, that is, I like the comment, because exactly too quickly, including me sometimes, I have to think about it, add to that ADHD, obviously. So I say, slow down, think about it, think about it, think about it. And then all of a sudden, what I thought was there isn't really, because I forgot to include something, a little bit additional thought in my experience, say, okay, that's what it means.
Yes. And I think for me as well, I got access to standing in someone else's shoes and looking at the world from their perspective, or at least trying to. I can't stand in your shoes, John, and know what it's like to have ADHD, but I can try to stand in your shoes and try to understand it from your perspective. And that gives me a different place to connect with you, or someone else who may be upset and yelling and screaming about something to me. I can try to stand in their shoes and understand from their perspective what's going on. And that gives me more power to interact with them in a different way, rather than yelling or screaming back at them or demanding that they understand. I'm like, wow, I can get where they're coming from. I can get why they're upset. I totally understand. And now we can actually open a dialogue. And I think in the world, if we can open our minds to that, try to stand in someone else's shoes, understand what they're dealing with, it'll bring us to a place where we can actually communicate. And having that mindset opens up worlds of possibility that weren't there before. We can end wars long before they start. We can end struggles and strifes and arguments long before they start, if we really try to understand where the other person is coming from.
Yes. And I think, that I 100% agree with you. Just touching on ADHD for a minute, is that it was already in 1997, when I was 57 years old, that I always knew I was different. Why am I different? So I never could quite understand it. And then I walked into a bookstore and I picked up a book called this one, Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Hollowell, medical doctor, professor. He is known around the world for, has written 18 books, dyslexia and ADHD. So am I. Dyslexia, ADHD. And the more I looked at this, and when I picked up this book that he wrote in 1993, this is the actual book. I picked it up in the store here in 1997, and I wrote in it in Dutch, "Now I finally know who I am." Dated January 1997. And so, the frequency of occurrence, I always thought it was around maybe 8% globally. I don't know. So before I knew it, after I did the research on it, and then I had him on my podcast, your podcast number 383. My podcast number 203 was with Dr. Halliwell.
Wow.
And so, as we discussed it, I by now had concluded it's a superpower, and that I believed, and I suggested that he's the expert, I lived it, and so did he, that I believe from all the time that I've been around, that I believe frequency of occurrence likely 20% or more. He said, no, John, at least 25%. I agree with
Wow.
him. And of all the entrepreneurs that I've known and all the successful people that I've been involved in, all the meetings that I meet these successful individuals, I suggested to him that probably of the successful and the operative and successful entrepreneurs, probably 50% of them are ADHD. He said, no, John, at least 75%. And I agree with him. And
Yeah.
so I say it's a superpower. And so, so the interesting part about it is that of all that collectively, I believe that 25 to 30% of the population ADHD, and to different levels, but that's how common. And it is not a distraction. It's not a negative. It can be, if you understand it, a positive, and it certainly was to me, and still is today. I speak about it, but not exclusively, actually. But I do make presentations about it, and I did one actually this past Monday in Calgary, Alberta, where there were probably over 400 people there, and most of them, this was typically on ADHD, and I don't do too many in live person because it takes too long. It takes me at least 2 days to get there, come back, and it's But I enjoyed it there doing a presentation. The benefit that I have is that I have a very good memory. And so I can do presentations. I don't like written presentations for dyslexia, for one. But the other one, I have a good memory. I can do a presentation for an hour, hour and a half, and I will do the presentation and it will go well. And so those are some of the benefits.
I love that you have taken ADHD and embrace it as your superpower. And there are people all over the world who have some form of challenge in their life and they can embrace it as their superpower. And then you'll see people with the same challenge and they embrace it as their victimhood. And again, I am not disparaging anyone. I'm just pointing out the differences in mindset. We can embrace something that's a challenge for us, and we can say, you know what, this is going to make me a better person. This is going to make me a stronger person. This is going to make me whatever it is I want. I'm using it as a supercharger, or we're going to go on the opposite side. And so, for anyone who's listening, take that to heart. Let go of, if you've got a disability or if you've got some challenge, let go of it being something that holds you back and embrace it, own it, and have it supercharge you so that you can accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. I have a friend who had a stroke and he lost the use of half of his face is now paralyzed and drooping, and it's had an impact on him. And he says, my disability is my superpower. And he's now become this amazing magician, something he took on after that. And he's now an author, and does coaching and talks on a circuit, just like you were saying. And embracing it like that can make a huge difference for those people who are dealing with the same thing. Because I can talk about it, and it's not going to make the same impact. I don't care how long somebody's studied it. I'd rather learn from somebody who's lived it and experienced it. And that's such a powerful place.
In two words in particular, you can. And what I said, easy said for me, but growing up during the war years, seeing far too much I shouldn't have seen, still the effect of PTSD and the inner child have been part of my life. Then growing up in northeastern Holland speaking dialect in Holland, and I love speaking dialect, but High Dutch is different than dialect, so I had to acquire when I was 17, 18, I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force. I had to speak High Dutch, so I had to acquire that skill set, still never quite polished it totally. And then I barely got that under control. Then I come to Canada, I could speak English. And so I had to learn to speak English. And then I'm a speaker and an author and obviously a top 1% podcaster globally. And so I say, if I can, anybody can. And that's easier said than done, but the operative foundation is attitude, passion, work ethic. What will follow is success. And to me, I can't is not part of my language. I can is, you know.
Yes. And for those who are listening who notice that, oh, I say I can't all the time, all is not lost. All you need to do is recognize that you've been saying I can't, and now stop saying I can't. Just drop the T and the apostrophe. I can. And have that be the new story you tell about your life. I can. I
Definitely.
can. I can. Every time you take something on, I can do this.
Yeah.
Even if you fail, I can. You're going to do it again. You're going to do it again. You're going to do it again. You will succeed if you take that on. John, you're sharing about the post-war and being in the war, reminding me of a time I was in Paris. I was visiting Paris at the times before I lived there, and I was waiting to go into a restaurant at the oh, I can't remember which museum it was, but it was a very busy restaurant. I was alone, and they were only taking parties of four, three or four or something like that. And there were two English women who were much older than me standing behind me. They were chatting. And they kept skipping us, skipping us, skipping us. Finally, I looked at them. I said, ladies, would you like to have lunch with me? And they said, oh, we'd love to. And so they let us in as a party of three and they sat us at a table of four, which was great. And they talked to me about their experience during World War II. And they shared about what it was like when the air raid sirens went off and they had to hide under the tables and turn off all the lights. And they shared from a place of not fear, not terror, or they didn't say, oh, I don't want to talk about it. They tried to blot it out. They shared from a place of this was what it was like. And the impact that that had on my life was extraordinary. Having never been through anything like that, I could get a very, very subtle taste of what it was like for them. And for me, that opened my heart even more and wanted me to make a bigger difference in the world. They could easily have been someone who shut down. I don't ever want to deal with this. I don't ever want to talk about this and close that part of their lives off. But they didn't. They embraced it as an opportunity to share with the world what that was truly like. And so you're sharing about your experiences and having PTSD and moving through it. It just opens my eyes even more and wants me to make a bigger difference, to make sure that we end strife, that we end conflict, and don't continue to perpetuate that way of living.
So what I hope to do, Perry, is that obviously, all the things that I've done, I've resolved who am I was very important for me latter part of life, but it is, and to be at peace with who I am, and doing the things that I'm doing, not for the purpose of, but staying active and busy doing all the things that I'm doing, and then the companies and the books and all the other. A lot of people say to me, "How do you do it?" I say ADHD. That's how I do it. And so, but the other part about it is that just coming back to that, what you were saying from our conversation, the money mindset and the thermostat does not only apply to people that are on paychecks and are always short a paycheck, but it goes far beyond that. And as you already indicated, that some of your clients fit in the category of not only millionaires, but billionaires that are seeking for that magic thing that makes them content with who they are, not for the purposes of money, but because of all the other things. And for them, with the billionaires and multi-millionaires, that the challenge that they have, they do not have enough challenges that and are seeking ways that can make them happy so that they also get up at, like I do, like likely you do, get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I always make my bed. I'm always think I'm late, and every day is a challenge and all kinds of. They don't have that anymore, and so I believe that the client base that you involve is not only about money but also about mindset in terms of I can.
Yes. And the reason my tagline is creating a new healthy relationship with money and yourself. Because at the end of the day, it becomes that philosophical conversation of who am I in the world? Why am I buying things, buying things, buying things, buying things, buying things to try to become happy? Now I can stop actually doing that and I can actually be happy. I can be content. I can find who I am from here And then the rest is just an adventure. I'm no longer chasing after something in the hamster wheel. I've got it. We want money. We say we want money for happiness and joy and fulfillment. Well, what if you had those things before you ever had the money? Suddenly, when the money shows up, it's a whole different conversation, a whole different experience. And we don't have to throw money away into a hole that can never be filled because there's something that's empty inside of us. We get that complete, and there's a new experience of life, a new joy, a new happiness, a new fulfillment. Because I've worked with people with very little money. I've interacted with people with very little money, and they're so extraordinarily happy and content. There's nothing missing. So it isn't the money. It is what's coming from here.
Correct.
Yep.
So the other part is, just talking about podcasting for a minute, is that I believe it is so immensely powerful that and so relatively new, like 6-7 years ago, I started blogging, and I liked that in a way, but then started working with a local television station. We did some things that were not structured like that, but interviewing different people with things and experience in our region here. And then next thing, COVID happened. And then all of a sudden we said, what do we do now? So, well, I had this apartment here that I had bought as an investment, and say, well, maybe what we should do is create a studio and do it here, because we're not allowed in the television station because of COVID issues. And so we did more interviewing sitting here. I'm on that side, the guest is here, and we have lots of interesting people. And then we said, well, this was going so good and interesting, we need to broaden our circle. So we signed up to Podmatch and started interviewing people from around the world, which we are doing now. So 98% probably of all the interviews that we do are virtual and from around the world. We may interview somebody from South Africa, China, Europe, wherever, all over, all kinds of different topics. So I'm very excited about that. I love it, and that fits me. So the next thing that I'm looking at doing is starting a platform, with ideas. So I hope to start that in the next 3 to 4 months, and still do podcasting as we're doing now. But it's and it's only on its infancy.
Yeah, absolutely. This technology, literally during COVID, it started to explode, and AI is now becoming a big part of how we can integrate the work that we're doing after the podcast is complete. Yeah, the sky is going to be the limit here. I'm sure in some near future we're going to have 3-dimensional holograms that will be showing up in our homes, talking to us and interacting with us. It'll be a very different experience, but it's exciting, and I'm very happy to be on this journey.
And so am I. Perry, it was amazing, our conversation. It took us far beyond just the issue of money and other things relating to that, but we did. And and for all those people watching us around the world, have you got websites or publications of some sort, Perry, that you can just share with our friends watching us?
Absolutely. They can find me in two places, periclesrellas.com or resetyourfinancialthermostat.com. Both go to the same place. And I have right there on the main page a link to my free masterclass, the 4 keys to resetting your financial thermostat. So that's how they can find out more about me. That's how they can connect with me. And if it's something that speaks to you, pull it towards you.
I love it, Perry. And again, for all those people watching us, if you like what we are doing, both Perry and myself, subscribe to our podcast, share it with others, and like it if you feel this is appropriate and you want to see more of this, both from Perry and myself in different settings. And let's stay in touch, Perry. And then maybe 6 months or so from now, we'll again put on another podcast.
I look forward to it. John, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great meeting you.
Thanks, Perry. Take care.
Thank you.